The events of April 29th began in the early morning when a quiet Indiana neighborhood was disrupted by the sound of a single gunshot. At 6:07 a.m., a woman called 911 after hearing the sudden blast outside her home. Officers arrived within minutes and found a man lying near the rear gate of the property, unresponsive and showing no signs of life. He had been shot once in the head at close range, and emergency personnel confirmed he was dead upon their arrival. The discovery turned a moment of routine calm into the beginning of a homicide investigation marked by uncertainty and immediate concern. Police responded by canvassing nearby houses, speaking with residents awakened by the noise, and searching for surveillance footage that might reveal movement around the time of the shooting. Early information indicated the victim had been seen alive only a few hours earlier. Witnesses reported observing him near a gas station and later traveling in a vehicle with individuals who would soon become key subjects in the case. What first appeared to be a simple killing quickly developed into a far more complicated situation, involving shifting accounts and unclear relationships among those involved in the victim's final hours. Detectives encountered conflicting statements, vague timelines, and warnings of tension among the people last seen with the victim. This section introduces the core of the case, outlining the moment the victim was found, and establishing the central questions that would guide the investigation: who carried out the shooting, why the victim was targeted, and what details were being withheld by those connected to his final hours. These uncertainties deepened the urgency surrounding the early stages of the investigation. As detectives began piecing together the victim's final movements, they quickly discovered that the key to the investigation lay in the complicated and emotionally charged relationship between three young adults: Cody, Dominique, and Nathan. Cody and Dominique shared a deeply troubled relationship filled with breakups, arguments, and turbulent emotion. They had a young child together, but their unstable dynamic had long been overshadowed by jealousy and mistrust. In the months leading up to the shooting, Dominique's relationship with Cody had deteriorated, pushing her closer to Nathan, a quiet and reserved young man who lived nearby. Nathan and Dominique developed a close friendship that eventually became romantic, creating a bitter rivalry between the two men. Cody, who battled insecurity and a volatile temper, frequently accused Dominique of cheating, while Dominique felt torn between the father of her child and the calm emotional support Nathan provided. Their private conflicts became public as arguments spilled onto social media, phone calls, and mutual friends, painting a picture of a relationship imploding under pressure. Witness statements later revealed that all three individuals had interacted in the hours before the murder. Cody and Dominique were reportedly arguing again. Nathan allegedly expressed fear that Cody wanted to fight him, and Dominique allegedly asked both of them to stop causing drama because she didn't want any more problems. This tense emotional triangle created a volatile atmosphere that investigators believed was essential to understanding motive and opportunity in the case, highlighting how resentment, fear, confusion, and shifting loyalties converged during the victim's final hours leading up to the shooting. As investigators reconstructed the victim's final 12 hours, a clearer timeline began to take shape. On the evening of April 28th, Nathan was observed near a local gas station, and surveillance footage captured him wearing recognizable clothing while speaking with a small group of acquaintances. Around the same time, witnesses later reported hearing Cody and Dominique arguing over the phone, describing the exchange as tense and emotionally charged. Others noted that Nathan appeared unusually anxious that night and repeatedly mentioned Cody's name, suggesting he was preoccupied with the possibility of a confrontation. Close to midnight, Dominique and Cody allegedly exchanged strained messages concerning their relationship and their child. During those same hours, Nathan reportedly confided in a friend that he felt unsafe and feared Cody might attempt to confront him. Investigators discovered that all three individuals remained awake during the early morning, moving between residences, meeting with mutual friends, and making phone calls that reflected rising emotions and building pressure. Sometime after 4 in the morning, Nathan was seen entering a vehicle with two other individuals. This vehicle would later be linked to a route consistent with the location where the victim's body was eventually discovered. Although the footage did not show a weapon or capture the shooting, it enabled detectives to place Nathan near the crime scene shortly before the 6:07 a.m. 911 call. These final hours became essential because they exposed shifting alliances, potential arguments, and unexplained gaps in each person's account. While no single detail identified the killer, the combined inconsistencies guided detectives toward the individuals closest to the victim before his death. From the moment the body was discovered, detectives initiated a full-scale homicide investigation. They began by examining the crime scene, analyzing the bullet's trajectory, and searching for any physical evidence that might clarify what happened. No shell casing was recovered, leading investigators to consider the possibility that the weapon was a revolver, that the casing had been deliberately removed. The close-range nature of the gunshot suggested a personal encounter rather than a random attack. Reinforcing the idea that the victim had been targeted, officers moved through the neighborhood, knocking on doors and collecting security footage from homes along the street. One camera captured a dark-colored vehicle traveling slowly just minutes before the gunshot. Another recording picked up the faint sound of a single muffled shot. Although none of the videos captured the exact moment of the killing, the recordings added crucial context to the timeline surrounding the victim's death. Detectives soon learned that the victim had known ties to Dominique and had recently been in communication with her. This information prompted investigators to contact her immediately, aware that her connections to both Cody and Nathan could be central to the case. As the investigation progressed, detectives obtained phone records, social media messages, and GPS location data. These digital traces revealed inconsistencies in the statements provided by all three individuals, highlighting deleted messages, altered stories, and unexplained movements. The placement of a Truthfinder background check advertisement in the source material reflects a broader reality of modern investigations, where both official and unofficial methods are often considered when reviewing personal histories and digital behavior. As detectives continued gathering evidence, it became increasingly clear that the killing was rooted in interpersonal conflict rather than random violence. When detectives brought Cody in for questioning, he appeared nervous and tense, attempting to shift suspicion away from himself at every opportunity. He insisted that he had no involvement in Nathan's death and claimed that he had spent the night moving between various houses, trying to calm himself after an argument with Dominique. Despite these assertions, investigators immediately noticed significant gaps in his timeline and contradictions in his phone and communication records. These inconsistencies prompted further scrutiny. Detectives confronted Cody about messages in which he expressed anger, jealousy, and frustration regarding Dominique's relationship with Nathan. He denied having any intention to harm Nathan but admitted that he had been upset. When pressed about eyewitness accounts placing him near the area where Nathan's body was discovered, Cody became evasive, deflecting responsibility and suggesting that others might be involved. His reluctance to provide clear answers heightened the investigators' concern. Throughout the interview, detectives employed standard interrogation strategies. They allowed silence to linger, methodically confronted him with contradictions, and emphasized that the truth would eventually emerge. Cody repeatedly altered his account, shifting details about where he had been, who he had contacted, and the timing of events. Each change raised additional questions. Though they did not constitute direct proof of guilt, police later described Cody as emotionally unstable, defensive, and evasive. While he stopped short of admitting involvement, his inability to maintain a consistent narrative reinforced the theory that the homicide resulted from the volatile love triangle between Cody, Dominique, and Nathan. His behavior highlighted the complexity of the case and the emotional tensions that culminated in the fatal shooting. Dominique's police interview presented a stark contrast to Cody's. She appeared composed, measured, and generally cooperative, speaking calmly about the events leading up to Nathan's death. She openly acknowledged the long-standing problems in her relationship with Cody, detailing arguments, jealousy, and tension that had escalated over time. She also admitted to growing closer to Nathan, describing a friendship that had become emotionally significant. Detectives questioned her about whether she believed either Cody or Nathan was capable of violence. She insisted that Cody, though volatile, would never kill anyone and characterized Nathan as shy, non-confrontational, and unlikely to start a conflict. Despite her calm demeanor, Dominique's confidence faltered when asked about messages exchanged in the hours before the shooting. She hesitated and struggled to account for gaps in communication, which detectives noted could suggest concealment or selective memory. Several messages had been deleted from her phone, raising further questions about what she might be withholding. Investigators also confronted her with information from friends, who claimed she had expressed concerns about Cody's behavior the night before the murder. When asked whether she thought Cody and Nathan might have had a confrontation she did not witness, Dominique denied any knowledge of such an event. Still, the inconsistencies in her statements and her partial recollections made detectives increasingly skeptical of her account. Her interview revealed the extent to which she was entangled in the emotional turmoil that preceded the fatal shooting. While Dominique did not directly implicate herself, detectives believe she may have withheld information to avoid responsibility for her role in escalating events. Combined with Cody's evasive statements, her testimony helped investigators construct a narrative defined by jealousy, fear, and complex interpersonal conflict, laying the groundwork for understanding the motives behind the homicide. By analyzing interviews, digital evidence, and witness statements, detectives began reconstructing the motive behind Nathan's death. Central to their findings was the emotionally charged tension among Cody, Dominique, and Nathan. Cody felt increasingly threatened by Nathan's growing closeness with Dominique, interpreting their relationship as a direct challenge. Nathan, in turn, reported feeling unsafe around Cody, expressing fear of a potential confrontation. Dominique found herself caught in the middle, attempting to mediate. But her inconsistent communication and fluctuating emotional responses unintentionally heightened the conflict. Investigators theorized that Nathan may have been drawn into a confrontation that escalated beyond control, whether deliberately or inadvertently. The close-range execution-style gunshot strongly suggested that the homicide arose from a personal dispute rather than a random act of violence. Detectives considered the timing, location, and interactions of all three individuals, noting how the sequence of messages, social media exchanges, and eyewitness reports built a narrative of rising jealousy, anger, and fear. Although the investigation could not immediately determine if the shooting was planned, spontaneous, or accidental, the evidence pointed clearly to a connection between the rivalry over Dominique's attention and the fatal outcome. The background check style information gathering highlighted the underlying fear and suspicion permeating the relationships, as each person sought answers about the others through official records, messages, and rumors. This reconstruction emphasized the emotional intensity, unresolved tension, and interpersonal volatility that placed Cody, Dominique, and Nathan on a collision course, culminating in a tragic act that might otherwise have been prevented. After completing interviews, analyzing phone records, reviewing surveillance footage, and tracing the movements of those involved, detectives compiled their final findings. Several key elements emerged. Nathan had expressed fear in the hours leading up to his death. Cody displayed anger and jealousy and was seen in the vicinity around the time of the shooting. Dominique had gaps in her account and had deleted portions of her communications. And all three individuals had interacted or argued during the critical hours before the homicide. Although the murder weapon was not immediately recovered, digital evidence created a detailed timeline of events. Camera footage captured Nathan in a vehicle traveling along a route consistent with the location where his body was discovered. Phone records indicated overlapping locations for all three individuals. Multiple eyewitnesses corroborated reports of tension, arguments, and threats exchanged before the shooting. Detectives concluded that the victim's death was a targeted Close-range shooting likely driven by jealousy and interpersonal conflict. The investigation highlighted the emotional volatility, inconsistent alibis, and tangled relationships connecting Cody, Dominique, and Nathan. While no commercial background check tools were directly implicated, the case underscored the importance of digital footprints, messages, calls, and online activity in modern investigations. Ultimately, the findings demonstrated that many homicides are resolved not through dramatic discoveries at a crime scene, but through methodical reconstruction of personal interactions, timelines, and communication patterns, allowing law enforcement to piece together the chain of events that led to a preventable tragedy. The story of Nathan's death is a stark reminder of how quickly emotions can spiral into tragedy. Jealousy, fear, and unresolved tension between Cody, Dominique, and Nathan created a volatile environment that ultimately ended in loss. Every text message, every argument, and every uncertain step contributed to a chain of events that no one could fully control. For the family and friends left behind, the pain is immeasurable. A young life ended too soon, and a community is left questioning how it could have been prevented. The investigation revealed that behind every statistic is a human story, relationships fraught with conflict, choices made in moments of anger, and the lasting consequences that follow. As we examine the details of this case, it serves as a warning. Communication, accountability, and awareness of emotional tension can make the difference between conflict and catastrophe. Law enforcement relies not just on physical evidence, but on understanding human behavior, interactions, and the fragile dynamics that often precede tragedy. If you found this story compelling, make sure to subscribe to Real Crime Pulse for more in-depth true crime documentaries. Every subscriber helps us bring these stories to light, uncover hidden truths, and remember those whose lives ended too soon. Don't miss the next investigation. Subscribe and join us in exploring the untold stories of crime, justice, and human nature.